Joining us here on the show, NBA insider and writer for NBA.com. You see him on NBA TV as well ahead of the conference finals. Our friend Sekou Smith dropping on by. Sekou, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, DA. What's up?
Not much, my friend. Hey, let's start with this Brett Brown comment, the quote that happened earlier this morning as part of the Philadelphia 76ers exit interviews and press conference. He said a high-level free agent is required for us to compete for a championship. When pressed on who that might be, he wasn't saying. He said, what do you want to get me fined? But everybody assumes it's about LeBron. And he said, fit doesn't matter. If it's a good enough player, we will make it work. How hard do you think the Sixers will try to sell LeBron this summer?
I think they're going to try to sell him like everybody else will. You know, if he's available and on the market, there's not a team in the league, that's not going to want to make a sales pitch to LeBron. So, when you look at the core group they have in Philly and what you could build around, if you add him to that mix, it would make sense for them to go hard after LeBron, to sell him hard or come and enjoy Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz, who we haven't seen at his full capacity yet. But, yeah, Brett Brown is smart. Keep his money in his pocket, but make sure you have a presentation ready if LeBron's going to take visits and you want to be in that mix.
Now, do you agree with Brett Brown that they need a high-level acquisition to win a championship?
Yes, they're at least one piece away, one major piece. You're talking about guys in their first and second year, basically, leading the way in Philly. So you got to have more season, help than that. And if you were to get a superstar, you add a Paul George type or LeBron type, yeah, that takes you over the top. That means you move into the next category immediately. And that's what you want to do. An aggressive team is a team that's going to have a chance to compete for a championship. You sit back waiting for something to happen or waiting for good fortune to find you, you'll be waiting.
How attractive do you feel the 76ers are to the players that you mentioned, LeBron, Paul George, if Kawhi Leonard were to be traded? How attractive is that spot, that destination for guys like that?
Oh, I think it's tremendously attractive when you're just talking about having a big man who could be an anchor for you for the next however many years, and then a point guard, with as much talent and still as much feeling as Ben Simmons has. Man, that's a tremendous opportunity for a veteran player to come in and have some young guys take some of that pressure off of him to lead the way a little bit and not have to tote the entire load. And you got these guys there to help, fill in the pieces. It's a great opportunity. It's just a matter of, is that Philly organization, have they turned the corner from a perception standpoint to these players around the league? The process was brutal. It was gruesome. And I don't know that every player believes that they've come out of that yet, but to my eyeballs, they look like a program that's ready to keep ascending, and you add the right veteran star player to that mix, it could be devastating.
Sekou Smith joins us, NBA.com, NBA TV, ahead of the conference finals. Let's start in the West because Steve Kerr had some interesting comments saying, hey, we've got rings, and that takes pressure off of us, and we're playing with house money after we won that first championship, and that first championship is the toughest. Is he trying to play Jedi mind tricks with the Rockets and push the pressure onto Houston?
Yeah, I think it's some Phil Jackson mind tricks going on, but I would expect nothing less of Steve Kerr. He's been in this thing long enough, competed at the highest level long enough to know this. They got a challenge on their hands in the Rockets, and the Rockets have home court advantage, so that means you're going to be fighting uphill. You got to steal one of those first two games if you go State to flip the home court and the momentum in that series right away. But I like what they're doing. I love how he's positioning his team to not only win the game on the court, but to win the mind games that are going to be played throughout this series.
Do the Rockets have to take both to open up this series, or do you feel like they're good enough, they're dynamic enough to be able to take one in Oracle?
No, they're the ones that have to something to prove in the postseason. I don't care what the regular season series was. The Rockets do not need to surrender anything at home. They got to win both those first two games at home. Show it, show us and show themselves that they're ready, for this challenge. I think it's very important for them to, come out and have a huge start in games 1 and 2, win those games, and put the pressure on the Warriors to go home and hold serve.
Sekou Smith joins us, NBA TV, NBA.com. From an Eastern Conference Finals perspective, if you were to have a draft of all of the players in this series, clearly LeBron would go number one. But would it be just then a string of Celtics that you would take before you would probably get to Kevin Love after that? In other words, do the Celtics have far more of the depth of the talent in the series, whereas the Cavaliers are mainly one guy right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get this conversation that people are having about Brad Stevens winning with no talent. I mean, he's got a bunch of lottery picks, a multiple-time All-Star, a guy who's been to the conference finals in Al Horford. He's got some quality veterans, Marcus Smart, Morris. I mean, they got plenty, and Vans. They have a nice rounded roster, and have all the pieces you would want. Obviously, you got two sitting in street clothes, in Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. You'd love to add to that mix, but this notion that he's out there coaching some group of guys from their local Ys is just comical. I mean, they got lottery picks and guys who are all very highly thought of around the league. So, and yeah, their quality of depth to me is far superior to what Cleveland throws out there right now.
So I think that's kind of interesting. Do you wonder if that might be the reason why Brad Stevens didn't catch any votes for Coach of the Year? That there's been this narrative that he's doing so much with so little, and coaches around the league go, it's not so much with so little. I mean, he is a good coach, but they still have a lot of talent over there. Could that be the reason?
No, I think the reason is that he's in dealing with the boys club. The NBA coaches are just like any other exclusive group. They protect their own, and they look out for their own. And let's face it, Brad Stevens is not one of those guys. He's come onto the scene late, in terms of years of service in the NBA. So I'm not surprised at all that he didn't curry a whole lot of favor with some of his so-called peers. They're looking out for guys that have been in it and that they've known and don't get the kind of headlines that Brad Stevens did. He's gotten a lot of love and a lot of credit for that turnaround in Boston, whereas I'm sure a lot of those people think, they're looking at his talent and looking at that roster, looking at the job Danny Ainge has done and saying to themselves, it's not all him. It's more than just Brad Stevens.
So I think that's fascinating, and that's a point that I brought up yesterday as well. I always wonder, because Stevens has such a positive reputation around the press and in the media and from fans, nobody ever says a critical word about him. If there's a resentment amongst his peers that he's kind of the golden boy, he's boy wonder, and that's what you're saying, that because he wasn't a grinder assistant, come up through the ranks of the NBA, and he's beloved by everybody, there might be some resentment around the league from the other coaches, right?
Yeah, I think even if it's not conscious, I think it's just a subtle thing. Dwayne Casey is one of their own, guy who's been an assistant for years. He helped, resurrect and turn around that Toronto situation, and I think they felt like, by virtue of his team finishing first, he should definitely be in a position to garner that Coach of the Year love, So I think it's nothing more than that, nothing sinister, but certainly something that's a little sideways, if you ask me.
So finally, on that point, breaking news, Adrian Wojnarowski has just tweeted, as we've been on the air together, you and I, just moments ago, that Toronto has fired Dwayne Casey. And, of course, he just won the Coach of the Year award, but the number one seed gets swept out by LeBron James. What's your reaction to the Raptors firing Dwayne Casey?
Just pure comedy. I mean, I don't know what would lead anybody to believe that Dwayne Casey was the reason that they, stumbled on that big stage. I mean, look at his stars and look how they performed, and ask yourself, was that something that he could have fixed, or was that a personnel problem that his stars could not find their way to playing better than they did on the biggest stage? I think that's a travesty. I really do. And I think it makes a mockery of, the coaching profession at the NBA level when you can win at that level, win at the highest level, finish as the number one seed in the East, and stumble in the playoffs, and that somehow costs you your job. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and Dwayne basically said that after game number 4, saying, I told these guys that to expect LeBron's best, to expect the Cavaliers' best, we have to respond. And he basically said they didn't. It almost makes you feel like, well, if the coach is alerting his guys that you got to wake up and they don't wake up, it's kind of hard to blame the coach, isn't it?
Yeah, but, they get paid a lot of money, to take that risk and to be on that stage. So, unbelievable, though, that he would get Coach of the Year one day and get handed the pink slip the next, man. It tells you it's an unforgiving business. And, if Toronto thinks they got a coach out there that's going to take that same group to the next level, I want to see who it is. I'm very curious to see who they think will get them to the next level.